Hello, everyone. A little bit of emotion on site. So my name is Manuella. I'm the co-founder of Good Tech Lab, which is a research and innovation firm looking at how can we help moonshots of the 21st century. And by that, we mean reversing climate change and tackling the global goals. So it's quite ambitious, but we've been seeing a lot on that space recently, and I'm thrilled to have the chance to speak a little bit about it.
So last year, Manu published a big report. Tell us a little bit about that. It's a good read for anyone who wants to swat up on impact.
Thank you. So yeah, we spent 2 years speaking with a lot of people. We interviewed 450 experts, entrepreneurs, VCs, many different profiles from 30 countries to understand how can technology reply to the SDGs. So we really look into the details, not only each of the global goals. I'm talking about the Sustainable Development Goals. I think that everyone here already knows, so I'll just go for short with SDGs. There are 17 of them, and what we looked at inside of each of the SDGs, there are general targets, and there are plenty of existing and developing technologies that can actually help us go faster, move faster, and achieve those targets. So we mapped 180 opportunities with over 500 examples of companies that are already doing a good job on this area, and I obviously invite you all to take a look on that. Just maybe as a side note, when we talk about impact tech, we're not saying that technology will solve it all. So we also listed a couple of challenges that come attached to it, and a quick mention on impact management, which we also found as being key, and we did a specific session on that. So yeah, looking forward to your feedback on that matter later on.
Amazing. So the previous panel said they thought there wasn't a kind of funding issue in the impact space. Do you agree, or what do you think? Kind of what funding infrastructure, like additional infrastructure, do we perhaps need to grow the impact ecosystem?
So I think that's something that's been discussed this morning as well. I think we have many reasons to be optimistic about it. First of all, because tackling the SDGs has proven to be a very, a big economic opportunity. There's a market of $12 trillion annually on it, just by proving solutions to the SDGs. And more people are realizing that, so you're seeing more and more funds. We had the CEO of the GIN, which is the Global Innovation Impact Investing Network, and impact investing in general has been increasing quite a lot in the past 10 years since it started. But we still see that it's still a very small percentage of the whole investment that is available. When you see the big asset managers, most of the capital is still not invested towards what is impact. There are also improvements on that area, also things that had been mentioned today, BlackRock and JP Morgan and many others. In the case of BlackRock, they announced at Davos they are integrating sustainability metrics and analysis into their portfolio. They are exiting coal. So you're seeing improvements in the sense of at least not doing so bad in terms of investment, but we definitely need a lot more in terms of doing investing that's actually creating positive impact for society, for sure.
And are there, what kind of particular funding structures, maybe, like types or forms of investment would be useful in this space? Because obviously, venture capital investment is not great for any business, let alone perhaps for lots of impact businesses.
Sure. So I guess the specialty of the impact tech sector is that indeed it can receive very different types of capital that ranges from grants, or you can even call them catalytic capital. There's a very interesting organization from the US called Prime Coalition, which is actually gathering and pushing foundations and donor-advised funds, to invest their money into creating breakthrough solutions to climate issues, especially on energy spectrum. And so it's very interesting to see that, this catalytic capital that actually helps de-risk the company in this very early stage for the technology. And from there on, blended capital, which would be mixing VCs or debt, or even, there's a very interesting model as well from Indie VC. Maybe some of you have heard of it. They're not working on equity-based funding, but actually challenging this unicorn model. And there are plenty of different funds that are offering other opportunities for startups to be financed. And for impact tech startups, you can also have even like grants coming from challenges and prizes. Here in France, you have Palais. In the US, you have the X Prize. In the Netherlands, you have the Dutch Green Challenge. So there are many opportunities for impact tech startup to get funded. And I think you should be open to looking at all of them.
Okay. And what role do corporates have in this? You know, whether it's in terms of funding startups or working with like impact companies or running challenges, you know, how can they help kind of boost this ecosystem?
You mean, how can the funders help?
Corporates.
Yeah, corporates help.
Yeah.
Okay, so for the corporates, there's so many things they can do on starting on their own businesses, I would say. Obviously, helping startups with CVC, like corporate venture capital, with open innovation programs and so on. But on their own business, something that's fundamental is to look at sustainability and try to integrate that into their core mission. Or at least not doing so bad or harm. You've been seeing like many announcements of companies looking for like net zero, or that they are trying to reduce their carbon emissions. I guess that one, like a big one that we saw recently was Microsoft that said that they will reduce their emissions in scope 1, 2, and eventually 3 when they can get it. Meaning like 1 scope is just their own emissions from the operations, 2, when you reduce the emissions from the operations of your company and also the energy that you purchase, and 3, that you reduce the emissions from the entire supply chain. So like being bold in your ambitions, ideally adopting science-based targets, it's also very important for a company because the climate emergency is right there in front of us. So we cannot delay on providing a response to it.
Well, when a massive company like Microsoft comes out and says something like that, what like effect does that have on other businesses or on the ecosystem more broadly? Yeah,
sure. I think it gives an important and strong message, like same as the announcement that I mentioned from BlackRock. It just gives a sign that there is an opportunity and a need to being careful about sustainability, and that there's opportunities for big players, but that also the smaller ones should be looking at how can they integrate, already start differently, right? And integrate this idea of sustainability into their core mission from day one. And luckily for us, I've been seeing a lot of companies that are already doing that, and I just hope to see even more in the future.
What can we, the little old consumer, do to have an impact and to make companies change faster?
As customers, you mean? Be selective, like choose whom are you like consuming from. You know, like there are so many interesting ideas and platforms that are available for us. Here in France, there was mentioned before as well, there's Phoenix, for instance, when you're going to buy your food, why not buy some food that was going to be wasted? You know, you can avoid plenty of things when you just make a conscious decision on what are you purchasing. And also putting efforts in communicating to the companies what are your desires, and that the direction to go is really taking care of our planet and of our society as well. So we have also been seeing, like, for those who are not just as a consumers, but as employees, right, taking action into, like, pushing their companies to do things differently. I know that Amazon employees recently also had a manifest saying that they didn't agree with the policy of the company on climate, and that got quite of a buzz, which is important, again, to send a message to companies in general. You had the same with Google's walkouts last year about sexual harassment and so on. So I think that both as citizens, you can look on, like, your consumption behavior, as employees to send a message to your employers.
Yeah.
And yeah.
And obviously another big player in this is kind of academia and universities. What role do you see them playing, and what more can they do?
A key role. They are educating the future generation. So one of the things when we talk about impact tech is like the technology sector, plenty of engineers on it. And what should be like the ideal curricula for an engineer nowadays that really integrates climate issues, right? And so that they are aware of what they're going to do in the future and the impact that it's going to have. And for that, I had the chance to contribute to the Lemonson Foundation initiative on engineering for one planet, or something like that, the name. it's quite interesting because they're actually pushing forward on a basic framework of what every engineering school should integrate in their curricula, but especially looking at the skills, knowledge, and basically experiences that engineers can have and should have when they get out of the university. So that's quite an interesting perspective to take a look at. In the future, are those engineers going to build responsible, environmentally sustainable technology or not? And another interesting initiative from the university perspective that comes to my mind is multidisciplinary programs. I saw one when I was back in China, very interesting as well. By the way, they are working, the Tsinghua University in China are working with the CRI here in France in this program. It's a master program, especially focused on the SDGs. So they bring together designers, engineers, and people from very different other programs in the school to create solutions for specific SDGs during their master's course. So it's quite exciting.
Have you seen, are there any other kind of accelerator or incubator or programs like that in Europe that you've seen that, you know, maybe bringing together the creative side and the engineering side, or a different combination of people are creating interesting impact organizations?
I have seen quite a few. We're just all amazed that
yep.
went out from the stage bringing the impact tech movement together. And there are in different levels as well. Like a new trend here in Europe is also the startup studios and company builders. There's one in the UK that I like quite a lot, which is Deep Science Venture. Yep. Not so much about bringing designer competencies, but rather on how to train scientists to really develop companies that will provide answers for the challenges that we have in society today. So, for instance, in energy sector, food sector, this kind of thing. Here in Paris, I know that we'll be soon launching, if they didn't open yet, the Creative Destruction Lab, also for helping scientists to develop their companies and to go to the market. Because one of the key challenges as well, we were talking about the university before, is how do you bring this innovation to our real world and not to leave them, you know, hold into the labs.
Yeah. Amazing. I think we're out of time, but thank you so much, Manu.
Thank you.